And we are live. Mr. Wolstein.
How are you? Scott Wolstein. Mr. Wolstein passed away.
Top of the morning.
That was my dad.
Top of the morning. Thanks for coming aboard. Welcome to This is CLE Live. Thanks for coming on. And man, I'm super excited to just learn more about what Scott Wolstein, what makes you tick as a leader. I kind of like, and obviously, we've actually never met prior to this. We have a lot of mutual friends. But to give some context to this, I love talking to business leaders, whether it's big business leaders, small business leaders, people that own businesses, entrepreneurs, and finding out, what the principles behind their success was. So we're going to dig into a little bit of that. But, before we get into all those fun things and what you have going in Cleveland and what you've done, tell me a little bit about yourself so that our Cleveland people kind of know a little bit. Obviously, we see your name, Wolstein Center. It's the family name speaks for itself. But tell me a little bit about Scott Wolstein.
Well, I grew up in Beechwood, Ohio. Moved there when I was 3 years old. My dad was a self-made man, and he was a lawyer, and he was in the real estate business. We were never wealthy while I was growing up. We lived in a neighborhood, where people lived very close together, and everybody knew everybody. I started working on a construction job when I was 13 for $1 an hour. And I thought that was a lot of money at the time, and I was happy to earn it. I went to Beechwood, and then I went to Hawkins School for a couple of years. I graduated and then went to Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in finance. And then I went to law school at the University of Michigan, but was always a Buckeye fan, still am. I practiced law for a while at the firm of Thompson, Hine and Flory. Now it's called Thompson & Hine. Specialized in partnerships. And then I left the firm and formed my own business, which was a business that structured tax advantage investments in real estate, equipment, and other things. At that time, there was a different tax law than what we have now, which allowed us to do some pretty creative things. When that was legislated out of existence, sort of pivoted and started to do some real estate acquisitions and development. And then in 1993, I merged my company with my dad's company, and we went public. A company called Developers Diversified Realty Corporation. At the time, it was about $400 million in assets. We raised about $200 million in equity, which today would be a small deal, but at the time it was pretty major. And I ran that business for 20 years as CEO and grew it from $400 million in assets to about $16 billion. We had shopping centers all over the United States and Brazil and Puerto Rico. Probably were the largest owner-operator of large power centers anchored by people like Walmart and Target and Home Depot and what they have you. And then I left I sort of navigated through the recession, which was a really tough time. Company, kind of struggled through that, and then we recovered. And when the company was on solid footing, I left in 2011, and I joined a guy by the name of Barry Sternlicht, who runs a firm called Starwood Capital Group, which created Starwood Hotel Chain. And we created a retail platform together in the mall business, and I ran about a $7 billion mall portfolio with Barry for about 7 years. And all that time, I've been active in my hometown and developed things like the Flatshees Bank, which is well known, Barrington Golf Club and community, the Renaissance Hotel, Renaissance Office Building downtown, which is now the U.S. Bank Building. So, I've always been active in local development. Recently acquired the old BP building, 200 Public Square, with a partner from New York. And continue to look at opportunities in Cleveland. Love it here. And, I'm a Clevelander born and bred.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm listening to you, and I have so many questions. One of the things that got me, perked up a little was when you said that you merged your company with your father's, and then you went public.
Yeah.
That had to be, I guess, a lot of fun and probably stress all at the same time, taking a private company public, right? What was the biggest purpose to raise capital? Was that the biggest reason why you went public, or?
Yeah. There, what happened in the 1980s, the late 80s, when they changed the tax law and eliminated tax shelter investment, they created very severe illiquidity for real estate, and it really caused prices to drop. Savings and loans who had big real estate portfolios disappeared, and there really wasn't any ready capital source to take its place. So virtually every real estate developer who had credit lines was sort of, in a bad way. And, a company in New York called Kimco, which was very similar to ours, figured out that they could form an REIT, a real estate investment trust, which has some tax benefits for the investors, and raise capital that way to pay off their debts and operate with more equity on their balance sheet. So I watched that happen, and I approached my dad and I said, look, I know, you've got a lot of debt, and you're not sure how to figure, get out from under it. I said, I think I've got a solution. I think we can go public and we can get the banks out of our lives and, and grow the business. And he was all for it. And we hit the road together, did a road show, and had a very, very successful IPO. We were 5-to-1 oversubscribed when we went to the Florida New York Stock Exchange. It took us about half a day before the stock actually settled in at an opening price, which was a few bucks more than what people paid for it. So we got off to a good start, and we had a pretty good run.
That's cool. What a cool story.
Yeah.
So Scott, let's jump into East Bank. People, obviously, we know, anyone that's been downtown Cleveland for any time, any short period of time knows the Wolstein Center, but more recently, you literally transformed. We were talking before we started the broadcast that I grew up, as a young adult working down in the old East Bank of the Flats.
Right.
Started out, building sandwiches at Panini's, and bartended and barbacked at the basement, and I went to Cleveland State, so like just going just down there, it was kind of when you think about it, it was a nasty, dirty place, but yet people just flocked there anyway. I still remember the smells. You literally transformed that into what somebody, you're obviously a partner in Forward as well. And we talked a little bit about this. We do our Rock and Restock and Rock and Rescue is what we recently rebranded it. Concert at your place in Forward, yours and Bobby's club down there. And I have people flying in from all over the country to come to that event because it's a charity event. And they cannot believe that they're in Cleveland when they're down there.
Yeah.
It's a completely different experience than I mean, it's night and day. What was the motivation and vision behind that transformation, and just kind of walk us through that, because it's really amazing. Kudos to you.
Well, it's a pretty interesting story. And it's funny when you say you don't know you're in Cleveland. It's so funny. There's a mantra everybody says, why can't our lakefront be like Chicago? I had some guys here from Chicago, and I was walking the flats, and they said, why can't our riverfront be like Cleveland? So, which I thought was really interesting. I worked in Chicago for a while, and they don't have anything like this in Chicago. Their riverfront doesn't have this kind of activity. So what happened was, very early on, we started to acquire some of the riverfront property down there. And at first, we were just operating some real estate alongside a bunch of other people. And we were starting to bring in some national brands like Landry Seafood and Max and Irma's and Dick's Last Resort and Longhorn Steakhouse and John Harvard's Brew Pub. And But around us, guys were selling 50-cent beers to 19-year-olds and, motorcycle gangs and what have you. And, in the 90s, when Mike White was mayor, he woke up one day and he said, I don't know why we're sending policemen down to the flats because there's no black people going down there. So he pulled the police out. And if you don't think police make a difference in a district, all you have to do is look at what happened in the flats. In 1 year, the whole area really went down the tubes. And it got very, very rough, a lot of crime. So at that time, I approached the city. Instead of cutting and running, I approached the city and said, look, why don't you do a blight study? This area is blighted, and give me the power of eminent domain so I can buy all the property that I don't own and I can really develop this property properly. Because, a pure entertainment district like that doesn't really work. It's you have to have stakeholders, 24/7. And you really live, work, and play environment is much more successful with an entertainment focus. And that's what really needed to happen down there. And and the only way to do that really was to basically tear it all down and start over. Because if you recall, what we were dealing with at the time was a bunch of old factories that lined Old River Road. They're very shallow and they were 2 stories high. So you couldn't even see the river if you were on the property. The only way you could see the river was to pay a cover charge to go into a bar and come out their patio on the backside. So I wanted to really bring the public to the riverfront and create public access and make it more of a gathering place. So the only way to do that was to get all the buildings out of there and do a master plan. And that's what we did. And, it's working. We've got a very well occupied office building, a hotel, the apartments are well occupied, the retail's thriving. And we're about halfway done. I mean, when we're all done, I think we'll have about $1 billion of development in the ground. We're about halfway there at this point. So it's been very rewarding. And, I've got 4 children in their 20s. And, before we built the flats, it was we had a very severe brain drain here. The kids like my kids, would go to New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or San Francisco because they didn't think Cleveland was a fun place to live. And I think we've changed that. I think that when my kids come back to Cleveland, they bring their friends from New York and Chicago. They love it in Cleveland. They can't wait to come back. And, you mentioned Forward. I got to tell you, I don't think there's an outdoor nightclub better than that anywhere in the United States. I mean, it's a very, very, very special place.
I would agree with you. And a lot of my friends that fly in for that concert agree with you. I'm not a nightclub. I'm not somebody who frequents nightclubs on a regular basis anymore. That was a few decades back. But whenever we do get to go down there, it's a blast. I know Bobby he really runs a great operation, even down to the culture. And that was one of the things that we talked about there too. But yeah, I mean, it's the spot is perfect. I mean, you remember, that was Fagan's, right? Fagan's was there prior to that. Yep. And I remember they had a pool inside. I think it was an indoor pool.
No, they had a pool on the patio.
Oh, outdoor.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But what a transformation. I'm going to shift.
What makes it amazing is the way it sits in there with the lift bridge and the big freighters coming down and the railroad track. You see trains going by all the time. You could practically touch them.
Yep.
You just can't duplicate that kind of urban landscape, around a club. It's just, we didn't have to pay for that, and nobody could afford to. It's just all around us. And when you're there at night and you see all that, it's really, it's unique. I don't know if it could easily be duplicated.
No, I don't think it can be. And you mentioned the train bridge. I mean, I had people like literally flying in from probably 3 or 4 different states. A bunch of them were from Texas, Dallas, actually, and they loved the train. I mean, during the concert, the train goes by and everyone's just like loving it. And then that I don't know what kind of a tower that is that's lit up in blue. I mean, the entire ambiance of that it gives this industrial feel when you're down there, and it's just it's really something very cool. And Magnolia, great. That was well done too with the donut shop. That's a super cool idea, and we love going there. Again, once in a while we do manage to get out. But Scott, I got to ask. You managed the CEO, a publicly traded company. Prior to that, you practiced law. I think that's what I heard you saying, and had a company. What did you have to change about yourself to get to that next level of leadership from running a smaller, maybe it wasn't that small, but starting out as a private company, merging with Dad, and then taking it public? What was the big thing as far as that sticks out in your mind that you had to kind of change to become a different leader, to lead a larger organization like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to, when we first went public, it was a pretty small group, and we met, regularly almost every morning, and we all knew what everybody else was doing. By the time I left the company, we had over 1,000 employees. So, you didn't even know everybody by name. So you have to empower other people. You have to set up structures in place, and you have to set up systems and accountability. And, you have to watch the numbers very closely and make sure people are accountable. It's a little different, but at the end of the day, it's still people working with people and getting them motivated and giving them direction. And I've always been pretty hands-on, very detail-oriented in that regard. I think the toughest part of it was when we went through the recession, in 2008 to 2010. And, companies like ours saw their stocks drop precipitously. People were worried, about their jobs and what have you. And that was a very challenging time. And I used to meet with every department, at least once a month, and just talk to every employee and tell them what we were working on, how we were going to work our way out of this, and try to give them comfort, because it was very stressful. So that sometimes it's easy to be a leader when the wind's at your back. It's a little bit more difficult to get everybody's chin up when you're going through a difficult time yourself. Sure.
Have you read the book The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz?
No, I haven't. Sounds good.
You haven't?
I have not, no.
I think, first of all, I think you should, because it's a great book. It's one of my favorite business books. And me kind of coming up as a small business owner, and as my business grew, I knew I had to start making hard decisions. Mm-hmm. And I think you can resonate with this, leading a company of over 1,000 employees. When you mentioned that when the wind's at your back, things are easy. But when things are bad and you have to walk in and maybe let someone go, not because you don't like them or they're doing a bad job, just because you got to lay them off because the market, shifted or changed or whatever it was. That's hard.
Yeah, very difficult.
And having to tell, and Ben goes deep into that in the book. I don't know if you like audiobooks or actually reading them. I kind of do both, but the audio is great because Ben actually reads it. Mm-hmm. And it's called,
I'll have to check it out.
Hard Thing About Hard Things. Anyone watching this, definitely get that book. If you're a business owner of any size, there's some really great nuggets and good lessons in that book. So let's talk about what you got going on coming up soon here. Before we were chatting a little bit about, and it kind of got me super excited too, because you're going to be putting a couple buildings between Forward and what is it? The Alley Cat. And that plot of land right there. Tell us a little bit about what you got cooking there.
Yeah, if you go down there, you'll see. I think they got a construction fence up there, and we just started construction, I think, this week. We're going to build 2 buildings with a beer garden in between, and there'll be a stage in the beer garden so we can do some entertainment. The building will go right up to the boardwalk, right on the river. It's going to be 3 stories high, and with rooftop patios on all the buildings, patios in the front and the back. And we're going to have about 6 different operations there. We're going to have a country western bar. We're going to have barbecue. We're going to have probably a tapas bar on the roof of one of the buildings. 2 other restaurants. One's going to be a Asian fusion theme, and we're going to have another nightclub upstairs. So it's going to be a great addition. One of the challenges in the flats is that it's easy to go after the low-hanging fruit. There's a very tight demographic in their early 20s and maybe even to the late 20s, that loves that EDM and DJ music and what have you, and everybody goes after them. But Cleveland's not a big enough city to really have a district like that thrive off of just one demographic. You've got to make it appeal to everybody. So one of my real objectives there is to do that, and to try to bring on different themes, different types of food, different types of music, a lot more live music and what have you, and try to get the demographic just more broad. I mean, Cleveland's one of the biggest. I think the country music station in town is the second highest rated country music station in the country. It's a huge country music market, and you think about it, there really isn't any country music venue downtown. So we think that brings a whole different demographic, a lot of people that really haven't experienced the flats. And, if we can keep doing that with little different niches, I think we can make the flats even more successful.
I love it. Well, I'm a huge country music fan. In fact, we had Chase Bryant this year he's a country music artist from Nashville. He was our headliner for our concert this year. And I just don't think you can go wrong with country.
I think
you're right. I'm real good friends with Leanne Summers. She's the morning drive girl for WGAR, and she actually has hosted Rock and Restock before at Forward. So just curious, since we're on the country music thing, how many people is that venue going to hold, or do you not know yet?
Probably similar in size to Magnolia, so probably about 300. I would say, indoors, and then plus the patio. So in the summertime, you can pretty much double that.
Got it.
The beer garden will be, as big as the whole venue. So between the indoor bar and the beer garden and the patio on a summer day, I think you probably get close to 1,000 people.
Well, I'm excited, and I'm assuming that's going to be open for this summer, right?
We're going to try to get it open by Labor Day. Yeah, it's going to be tight, but we want everybody to get off to a good start while the weather's still good. So that's our objective.
Well, we are excited to see the fact that you're only halfway done with that East Bank is exciting, because that's just more to come. And so Cleveland's grateful for the transformation you've been doing down there and everything that you've put in, and even down to employing people here in our amazing city of Cleveland. And I appreciate you coming on. It was great getting to know you a little bit more, Scott. And I look forward to meeting you down maybe we'll have a cocktail at Forward or Magnolia one of these days.
Sounds great. Look forward to it. Thanks very much.
Scott. You have a great day.
Right. You have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.